Hello, everyone. Apologize for the lighting because I'm moving, so I need to figure it out. But today I'm going to talk about every single book that I read to completion this summer. There is one that I started before the summer, Normal People, but all the other books I started and completed within the summer. I read a total of 20 books, um, and then I had DNS that I did not finish, so I'm not going to talk about. And then there's some novellas that were too short to be significant, so I'm not going to talk about those. So yeah, not including those, I read 20 books. So I'm I don't I have some star ratings for these books, but my mind is always changing. Like, oh, is it a 3? Is it a 4? I don't know. But so some of them I'll give star ratings. But what is definitive is the order in which I'm talking about the books. So we're gonna go from worst to best. So the very worst book that I read was a book called Passion and Venom. It is a dark romance. A lot of people have a dark romance scale where they don't talk, they don't rate dark romances the same way as other books. But I'm just gonna rate it like all the other books. I don't even know, 2 stars maybe. It is. I don't even know the author's name, and I don't want to drag their name through the mud anyway. So, but basically, it's about this girl. She's a mafia girl. Her husband gets killed, and then she ends up falling for the man who killed her husband and imprisoned her and tortured her. I'm like, what is the point of this book? Like, why do people like it? It was terrible. I kind of just completed it so I could prove to myself that I can finish a dark romance. But yeah, I want to keep reading dark romance, but I'm not reading any more captive dark romances. I'm not into it. I was like, I was watching, funny enough, Beauty and the Beast, Her and Josh Groban version with my family, and I'm like, wait, this is like the plot of Passion and Venom. But Beauty and the Beast is like way better than this. But basically, it's like Beauty and the Beast, but just terrible. So it's not like it at all. Gosh, that book was so bad. Like, I don't know. I tried to give dark romance a shot, but it was just terrible. Anyway, next. The second book I read is Blackshare by, I think, Beth O'Leary. Um, that book, like, it was actually well written. So it sucks that it's coming second to last. But I read a lot of good books because when I read, I do a ton of research and I read a sample before I start reading, so I'll know if I'm gonna like it. So this is a book. It's slow burn. It's too slow, but that's not even the problem. The book is well written, but it wanted to be a rom-com, but the jokes were terrible. Like, they were so bad. Like, if the jokes were taken out of this book, it could have been 4 stars. Like, one of the jokes was, so the male lead is a doctor or a nurse. I think he's a nurse. And someone was like, the only people he likes are terminal patients. And I'm like, I'm supposed to laugh at that? Like, the jokes were awful. And that just ruined the whole book for me. So, yeah. So the book wasn't that bad. Like, well written, but I don't recommend it. Okay. Third is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I feel like it's kind of like a cultural thing. Like, other Black people have been saying they just don't, like, mesh with Emily Henry. So I think it's like a cultural, ethnic thing that I just can't, like, see myself in these, like, white characters. And it's just like, Book Lovers is about, I'd call it an Airbnb romance. It's like vacation. She's in a cottage in a small town with her sister and meets a guy who, like, she works with. It's just, and it wasn't even a lot about books either for a book called Book Lovers. So yeah, I just couldn't get into it. But it was okay. It was better than Blackshare. So, fourth book is The Kiss Quotient, which, it was good. It was fine. But, I don't know. The plot was a little. I actually really loved the writing, so I would keep reading this author. The plot I didn't really like. And they had miscommunication trope, which a lot of people hate, and miscommunication trope. So yeah, very good author. I would keep reading, but that wasn't my favorite. Fifth is Unfortunately Yours, which is the sequel to Secretly Yours. I was gonna give them the same rating, but then I'm like, that's a cop out. So this is higher just because she has my name, Hallie, the main character. That's not even a good reason. But so yeah, I really like this book. So like the majority of these books I liked that I'm going to talk about, except for Passion, Venom, and Flash Air. Yeah, they're fun rom-coms. Like I read this in one day. I read Unfortunately Yours in like 2 days. So yeah, I really like both of them. It's small town romance, which works when like both of the people are from a small town. When it's like one person flying into a small town for vacation, like that kind is like cringy to me. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. This is by Tessa Bailey. So if you're interested in reading her hundreds of books, those are the only two that I've read by her. So I haven't heard great things about the other books, so I'm kind of worried. Okay, next is book number 7. This is The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. I really like this book, but it's like because it was short, it was a little underdeveloped, which I can't fault it for because I just love short books. So it was like fine. It's just super, super fast paced. It's like a fantasy Bridgerton. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book and recommend it. And then people love Daughter of the Pirate King, so I'm going to read that next. Really recommend this book. Okay. Next is, I'm looking at my list, Priest by I think Sierra Simone. I'm not going to talk too much about this book. It's just spicy nonsense. But I enjoyed it, read it really fast. But I'm not going to go into it because it might offend religious people, but I really enjoyed that book. If you don't like spice, don't read that. It's very like Wattpad-y, so if you don't like Wattpad spicy books, then don't read it. Okay, next is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. My boyfriend wants me to read this book, or he wants me to read the whole series. It's about an assassin, and Nevernight's also about an assassin, but it's a lot better than this. So I just I don't like waiting around for like a series to get better, especially if there's so many books, but I'm gonna keep going. But there wasn't enough action in this for me. There wasn't enough going on, but it was pretty good. It was fine. It's like it falls in the middle of my list. So I'm reading Crown of Midnight. I'm in the middle of Crown of Midnight right now. Okay, next. 10. Mysterious Society of Lady Scoundrels. That book it has a lot going on. It's great. I recommend it. Well written. It was kind of like confusing, chaotic. I didn't know like what side the male lead was on, which was like the point, but I was just confused. It was kind of hard to visualize. I really needed illustrations to like understand like how to bring pirates it's about pirates, and they bring pirates out of the water and they're on land, and it's kind of hard to visualize. So yeah, I just struggled visualizing it, but it was a great book, great fantasy rom-com. It was kind of like all genres. It was great. Well, not all genres. It wasn't like horror, obviously, but yeah, very funny, very entertaining, and I highly recommend. Really well written. That was by India Holton. The next book, gosh, I had to look through my list. They're all like in the order that I read them and not in the order that they're ranked. Take a Hit, Danny Brown by Tabitha Hibbert. This book, I'll start with, the only thing I didn't like is it had too many social media clips like in the book. But other than that, I loved it. 5 stars. It's fake dating with they're like friends with benefits, fake dating. And yeah, it's so well written. I want to read all of Tabitha Haywood's books now. I highly recommend. And I'm gonna read. So I read the second book first, and I'm gonna read Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Okay, next is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was, yeah, it was great. I love like reading about music and bands and watching TV shows and movies about bands. So really up my alley. I don't know. I don't have much to say because I don't really have a critique. There is a twist in the book that was kind of inconsequential. Like didn't really change the book at all. So that was probably my only like negative thing I'd say about the book. But I thoroughly recommend it, especially if you're really interested in rock bands and like especially in the 60s and 70s. Taylor Jenkins Reid does a lot of, I call them fake celebrity memoirs, and that's what this is. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, the characters were awful. Like I didn't really like any of the characters except for the drummer because he was like the comedic relief and he was just amazing. Okay, book 13 is My Dark Vanessa. By Kate Elizabeth Russell. That book is about what do you call it? Grooming, or like, you know, it's like pedophilia and a student and a teacher falling in love, and it has dual timelines. So you see the relationship when the main character was 15, and then later in life where she's realizing that she was a victim and coming to terms with that. So yeah, it was very, very well written. I do have some critiques, but you can watch my last month's wrap up. Although I don't. I think it was in July. No. It was in August. There we go. Check my August video for my critique on the book. But it was really good, and I think you'd have to ask everyone in your book club if it was okay, but it's a good book club book. So, next is Aurora Rising by J. Krista. I bought this, I guess, like a library didn't want it anymore. And Amy Kaufman. So this is basically like a teen Star Trek. It's so good, so entertaining. It's just amazing. Like when this J. Kristoff is like amazing, but when an author can make me like YA, they're like especially amazing. I don't hate YA, but you know it's hard to like sometimes. The only problem is every character gets a perspective, and it's like 6 or 7 characters, and it's too much. Like it's way too much. I was like, whose perspective is this? It was like reading on a carousel spinning, so it was way too many perspectives. So, but still, I highly recommend it. I'm reading the sequel, Aurora Burning. Next is book 15. This is Either Or by Elif Batuman. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. This is the sequel to The Idiot, which I'm going to talk about later. It follows. It's an autobiographical fiction about a Harvard student. So basically, yeah, the writing in both is amazing. So the very last page, like the super end, is great. And the last page is better than the last page of The Idiot. But the end third of the book was not as good as the end third of The Idiot. So it's like this ending I didn't like, but I like the last page. And the other one I liked the ending, but I didn't like the last page. So yeah, it kind of boiled down to that because it's basically the same book continued. So there's not like huge differences between like the first and second book. But just because of the plot and things that happened in the first book, I like The Idiot. more than either or, but the writing style is exact same characters, same everything, so there's not really big differences between the books. Okay, next is my book I already mentioned, Normal People by Sally Rooney. I watched the TV show and then read this, which made me made my reading experience a lot better. So I don't know if you, for some reason, if you're interested in this, watch the show first and then read it, because people are just jumping into this and they're like, I hate it, which it's well written, so I don't get why someone wouldn't like this book. But only one point is that it doesn't have quotation marks, but that's not enough to make a book bad. So this is 5 stars. This is amazing. I recommend. And yeah, there's not much I can say. Just the show really changed my opinion, and maybe buy this, read this, love this. So the show kind of did everything for me. And then the last book I already mentioned is The Idiot, which is the first book to either or. It's amazing. That book was made for me. It's all about college academics. If you don't like academics, if you skip class, if you're not sitting in the front row, you're not gonna like the book. You're not gonna like it. So The Idiot I just related to the character. She took all the same classes I took. We were very similar. It was just for me. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The writing style is amazing. She got a The Idiot is a finalist for Pulitzer Prize, so they know what they're talking about. So yeah, I would say read it, but if you're not into school, you're not super into academics, you're not gonna like it. But that is everything that I read. So yeah. But yeah, I didn't add up to 20 because there were some novellas I didn't add. But yeah, based on these books, if you have like recommendations by these authors or similar books, let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Bye.